Imagine you were closing a business deal. You deliver the product, but when it's time to pay, the client looks at you and says, "Sir, we don't have cash. Would you accept this submarine instead?" This is not a joke. The year was 1989, and Pepsi, yes, the soda company, suddenly became the owner of the world's sixth largest navy. Listen to this inventory: 17 submarines, 1 cruiser, 1 frigate, and a destroyer. It begs the question, why on earth did a soft drink company need warships? Let's decode the bizarre deal that helped disarm a superpower.
Let's rewind to 1959. There was an exhibition in Moscow. Pepsi executive Donald Kendall decided to take a risk. He offered a chilled Pepsi to the Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev. Khrushchev took a sip and boom, he was hooked. The deal was set. Pepsi would be sold in the USSR. But there was one massive problem: the money. The Soviet currency, the ruble, was completely worthless outside the USSR. Its value in the international market was zero. Think of it this way: it was like someone trying to pay you with monopoly money instead of real dollars. Pepsi could deliver the drink, but how would they get paid? With worthless pieces of paper?
So, Pepsi looked at the ledger and realized they had to go old school, ancient school. They asked the Soviets, "If you don't have money, what do you have?" The answer was liquor. Oceans of it, specifically Stolichnaya vodka. The plan was pure genius. Pepsi sent soda concentrate to the USSR, and in exchange, they got the exclusive rights to sell Stoli vodka in the USA. It was the perfect swap. Pepsi flowed east, vodka flowed west, and everyone was happy. But geopolitics is a cruel business partner. 1980, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. Americans were furious. The boycott began instantly. Nobody wanted to be seen drinking communist vodka. Suddenly, Pepsi was in a panic. They had warehouses full of vodka they couldn't sell, but the Russians were drinking Pepsi faster than ever. The tab was running up.
So the vodka deal was dead. Because of the war, Americans refused to buy Soviet vodka. But here is the catch: the Russians refused to stop drinking Pepsi. In fact, their thirst was getting dangerous. They were consuming 1 billion servings of Pepsi a year. The tab was running up. Pepsi was sending millions of dollars of syrup to Moscow and getting nothing in return. By 1989, the Soviets owed Pepsi $3 billion. Pepsi CEO Donald Kendall flew to Moscow. He sat across from the Soviet generals and effectively said, "We can't take your money. We can't take your vodka. You have to pay us in something else." The generals looked at their inventory. They didn't have consumer goods, but they did have a surplus of machines designed for World War III. They made the offer: "We will give you 17 submarines, a cruiser, a frigate, and a destroyer." Pepsi accepted. They calculated the scrap value of the steel and realized it covered the debt, so they signed the paper. And just like that, a soda company became the 6th largest naval power on Earth.
The paperwork hit Washington, D.C. like a bombshell. The U.S. National Security Advisor, General Brent Scowcroft, was notified immediately. He picked up the secure line and called Donald Kendall. You can imagine the confusion in his voice. "Donald, why exactly does a beverage company have enough firepower to invade a small country?" Kendall didn't panic, he didn't stutter. He delivered the ultimate comeback. "Brent, I am disarming the Soviet Union faster than you are." He wasn't lying. Pepsi had no intention of keeping the fleet. They didn't start a pirate navy. They didn't launch torpedoes at Coca-Cola. Within days, they sold the entire fleet to a Swedish shipyard. The submarines, the destroyer, the cruiser, they were all melted down into scrap metal. The iron was recycled, likely into soda cans. And just 2 years later, the Soviet Union collapsed forever. But for those few glorious days in 1989, the Cola Wars were literal.